All right, let's get into it. Today we're going to break down a really old fable that, honestly, has a super modern and powerful lesson about how we decide what's truly valuable. It's a story that basically asks us to look past all the shiny objects to find what actually matters.
So, we're starting with this statement, which, let's be honest, sounds kind of crazy at first. I mean, who would choose a single piece of grain over a world of jewels? But stick with me, because this one sentence, it's the key to unlocking a totally different way of thinking about wealth and success and even happiness.
And to really get that quote, we've got to go back to where it came from, one of Aesop's oldest and frankly most direct fables. And believe me, this isn't just some kid's story, it's a masterclass in practical wisdom.
The story itself is incredibly simple. So you have this cock, and he's driven by a very real, very immediate need. He's got to feed his family. He's scratching around in the dirt, and all of a sudden he finds something completely out of place, a stunning, priceless jewel. But here's the kicker. He looks at it for just a second, and then just dismisses it. He goes right back to looking for grain.
And of course, that leads us to the huge question at the heart of the fable. Was this cock just a dumb bird who had no idea what he'd found, or was he actually showing us a kind of profound wisdom that maybe a lot of us have lost track of?
That very question is where this whole thing transforms from a simple little tale into a really powerful principle. So let's break down this lesson in value that the crocus is trying to teach us.
Okay, so this is the most important part. The cock wasn't being ignorant. He was being incredibly clear. He saw with perfect clarity the difference between what society says something costs and what it's actually worth to him in his situation right now.
So you can really see the two sides of the coin here. On one side, you have the jewel. It represents what we call abstract value, the stuff our culture tells us is precious, things like status and sparkle. It looks great, but you can't eat it. On the other side, you've got the barleycorn. It represents actual value. It's humble for sure, but it provides real sustenance. It meets a genuine need.
And this leads us to a completely different definition of wealth. The fable is trying to teach us that real wealth has nothing to do with a price tag. It's all about utility. It's about having the thing you can actually use to fulfill your purpose.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? Context is absolutely everything. A diamond is just a shiny rock if you're starving to death. A gold bar is literally a death sentence if you're trying not to drown. An object's value isn't fixed. It's determined entirely by what you need in that moment.
Okay, so that's a great principle. But how does this ancient tug-of-war between the jewel and the barleycorn actually play out in our lives today? Let's make this practical.
Well, a good place to start looking is right in the mirror, at our own consumer habits. We make these kinds of choices every single day, and most of the time we don't even realize we're doing it.
I mean, here's the classic example, right? Somebody might spend a ton of money on a luxury watch. That's the jewel, because it signals success. But at the same time, maybe they're stressed about paying rent or buying groceries. That's the barleycorn. It's so easy to fall for the sparkle and totally forget about the sustenance.
And this pattern doesn't just apply to things we buy. It can show up in how we choose the people we surround ourselves with, too. Our friends, our partners, you name it.
You know, it's easy to be drawn to the jewel in a person, their job title, how they look, how much money they have, but those are just the trappings. The real barleycorn in a relationship is their substance, their kindness, if they're reliable, their character. If you only chase the jewel, you can end up feeling really well decorated, but absolutely starving for a real connection.
This isn't just a trap for individuals either. Entire companies and organizations can get caught up chasing these glittering jewels, all while they're neglecting the basic barleycorn that they need to actually function.
Think about a company that spends millions on a super flashy, award-winning office building. That's a huge jewel for everyone to see. But what if they're not paying their employees a good wage or giving them the tools they actually need to do their jobs? That's the barleycorn. They've essentially built a beautiful building on a completely rotten foundation.
Okay, so we can see the pattern. We get the principle. But how do we actually start choosing the barleycorn when the world is constantly dangling all of these shiny jewels in front of our faces?
The key, just like it was for the cocknick, is all about a shift in focus. It's about moving away from what society tells you is precious and instead tuning into what you personally need, right here, right now. Real wisdom is just self-awareness.
So here's a pretty simple but powerful way to think about it. First, always prioritize utility over appearance. Ask yourself, is this thing actually useful or is it just for show? Then get really honest about what you need to thrive, not what other people think you should need. And don't get distracted by what everyone else values. At the end of the day, it's about seeking the grain that actually sustains your life.
I really love this quote. It's like a personal promise. It totally reframes the choice. It's not about choosing something cheap over something expensive. It's about choosing peace of mind over a burden that you can't even use. It's choosing what nourishes you over what just sits there.
And I think ultimately the fable asks us to completely rethink our first impression of the cock. You know, in a world that is obsessed with useless sparkles, maybe the one who ignores them in favor of what actually matters isn't foolish at all. Maybe that's the only sane choice you can make. So, we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. What if the true cost of something isn't the number on the price tag, but the life, the peace, and the energy you have to trade for it, especially when it's something you can't even use? It's something to think about.